Welcome to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffern, along with Coach Ball. On today's show, we will recap last weekend and have special guest Dave Schmidlin on, and then preview the Ball State match and MIVA playoffs. Stick around.
Increasingly competitive world we live in, and this is the country we want ahead of the competition. These are the people we'll be depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. These are the colleges and universities we're relying on for the people we're depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. So if you want America to stay number one in the world, do something about it. Give to the college of your choice.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. Host Tim Heffern with Coach Ball. Coach, let's recap the last weekend as well as your excellent haircut.
Hey, you like my haircut?
I like it.
I went out this morning, just specially got that just for you because I knew that your due was going to be a little out of control there. So I went out and got it all slicked back just for you this morning.
Thank you. All right, you had a heck of a match here with Lewis, expecting a war. And really, I thought IPFW really took it to Lewis and never let Lewis out of their box.
Well, yeah, you know, it's kind of pleasant to talk about a win for a change. It'd become rather difficult to be creative here on the show after those 5 or 6 losses, I guess, in a row, something like that we'd had. And certainly expected Lewis, after having beaten Ohio State the weekend before, that we lost to Ohio State, that on that Wednesday that we thought they'd come in here and be ready to play. And I think they were ready to play. Somebody made a comment to me the other day about the fact that you know, Lewis had a couple people sick and that kind of thing, and my comment back was that I just thought we played well. It's the first time we've really played well consistently, maybe all year, for all the games of the match. You know, and of course we'd beaten them up at their place earlier in the year, and I once again thought that they'd come down here ready to try and get some revenge, and they got out ahead of us in the first game, if you remember, but our kids were real patient. We came back and won game 1 and won game 2 and walked right on through game 3.
Yeah, but McBride, their setter for Lewis, I thought played a really good game, and he's always going to get his kills with that left hand or whatever, but just shut down the hitting of Lewis.
Well, I thought Sultan, you know, Sultan has played real well for them. They're one middle hitter, but after that, I thought we were real consistent with our serving. We were able to take them out of some of their offensive flow. Early in the match, they were very successful in the middle. And the very same thing happened to us down at Ball State when we got beat by them earlier in the year. They were real good in the middle, and we adjusted our middle blocking and just started not necessarily committing, but we just started getting our hands real high and doing what we call a mini jump kind of thing and touching a lot of balls. And when we did, we were able to turn balls, and Mike Tremolin had an outstanding match against them again. I mean, he's just played really well offensively for us in the middle pretty consistently all year. And once we got our middle established and our passing settled down, you know, we talked last week about our Ohio State match and how Ricky had gotten hurt, and Ricky was not very effective against Lewis. But I thought it was just a gallant effort on his part to even play, and we've had trouble with him this week with practice. I mean, he's still questionable whether or not he's going to play against Ball State tomorrow night when we play them here at home, just because he's so sore in his tailbone in particular. But I thought he did a heck of a job against Lewis, just hanging in there and passing, giving us solid passing, which is what we needed. And I really, to be honest with you, thought the key player in our Lewis match was Dave Zubb. I put Dave Zub in all 3 games, and in particular Game 3, if you recall, real early in the game, I brought him in, and because I just felt we were real sluggish, and he dug like 3 balls in a row, and we turned and scored all 3 plays. And he's been a real inspiration to our kids that come in off the bench. I'm just really pleased with what he did for us here on Friday night against Lewis, and I thought it really helped us to sweep them.
All right, let's move then about, 8 hours into the future, and you take off early in the morning for the Quincy match, and that's, a 900-mile road trip, or it seems like?
Well, I know that it'll be the last time we ever do that. It was a nightmare from hell. I mean, it really was. We left, as a matter of fact, Coach Schmidlin's going to be on the show here in a little bit, and I should have let you talk to me about this, or give you some forewarning to talk to me about this, I guess. We were supposed to leave at 6:30. I got him out of bed about 10 till 7. And that probably has something to do with a girlfriend of some kind. And we'll talk about that maybe later on in the show if it comes back up again, and I'm sure that it will. So we were a little late getting started. We were supposed to play at 3 o'clock. We arrived in Quincy at 3 p.m. Coach Piazza had told me that it was a 6-hour drive, but he forgot that they take a big over-the-road bus, and he sleeps all the way, and therefore he couldn't remember whether or not it was a 6-hour or 8-hour drive. But he told me it was 6 hours. It actually ended up taking us 8, and that's was stopping for just about 30 minutes to eat. So we rode about 7.5 hours, got there in time to play. Actually delayed the match about 45 minutes. Got out, put our uniforms on, kind of like the old days of the USCBA, when you and I can recall. Jumped out, went out and played and beat him in 3.
Oh, that's fun. So how long do you wait in between matches then?
Well, the referees wanted to play right away. I said we probably ought to just have some kind of break because we stayed all night over there. And so we took a couple-hour break. What I didn't tell you was I didn't take Craig or Ricky. I left both those guys to home. 2 reasons. One is because Craig had been sick. Second, because Ricky had gotten hurt, and we just didn't feel it was great for him to ride 6 hours, which ended up being 8 hours, in a van in a cramped-up position. Thirdly, by leaving 2 players at home, everybody had a seat to themselves, so everybody got to lay long ways and sleep while Mark and I and Dave and Ron drove. So we waited about 2 hours, went out and got a Subway sandwich, came back and played again.
And how did that match go?
We ended up losing the first game. And the referee looked at me like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Hey, you talk to them, Actually, the referee and I were on pretty good terms at the beginning of the match. As the match went along, we become on less good terms, and you would have loved it. You would have loved it. I deserved a card. He went to get him. Didn't have him. He left him on the scores table. So he's up there searching his pockets trying to find his cards. Couldn't find them. I said, "I'll acknowledge the yellow card, even though you haven't given me one."
That's great.
We ended up losing the game, but came back and won in 3. And Papa said in I don't remember the name of their gymnasium over there, but he set a gymnasium record with 34 kills in that match.
Wow. That's great. Yeah, that's a fair number of swings there to get that 34.
Yeah, I think he had 71 swings, something like that, but he had 34 kills and really carried us in that match. They're a pretty nice team. Actually, they've got 2 players, a big kid in the middle and another shorter kid on the outside who are really nice players. And I'd not seen them play this year, so I didn't realize that those 2 kids were there. But fortunately for us, Papa played well, and Justin Luna played well, Forrest played well, so we had some kids really step up and play well.
Great. All right, we will be back with the next segment on Dave Schmidlin and some stories from him.
Check it out!
The campus has it all.
Learn it, or work it, or play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
In our ever-expanding world, we need a reliable source, one that addresses important aspects of our daily lives and provides us with useful information. Health and Home Report is that source, with stories on how to get the most for your money, where to go for a great vacation, hot fashion tips, what's happening in the world of arts and entertainment, and the latest medical breakthroughs. Health and Home Report provides a world of information.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffern, along with the special guest today, Dave Schmidlin, assistant volleyball coach for the men. Dave, how did you come about to get interested in volleyball?
Well, I was at Michigan State University. I was playing football at the time, and I started meeting some people who were starting up the men's volleyball club there. And I lived with these guys for a while, off and on, and things eventually built up where I became the assistant coach for the club. Sante Pirelli, the head coach, had asked me to help out, and that's pretty much how it got going.
So were you an athlete there at Michigan State?
Yeah, I walked on and played football for a year, and I injured my knee probably the second to last game before the season was over.
And they just started a club program? They were at the beginning of it or
They
something?
started a club program in 1986, and it kept growing and growing. I think they started out with 8 players, and when I started getting involved, they were starting to have tryouts where 130 guys would show up.
Wow. So that's really developed into one of the national club powerhouses, isn't that right?
Yes, it has. It's Sante Pirelli, the head coach there, has coached in the Olympic Festival, same last year with Arnie. The year before that, he was the assistant coach for the junior Olympic team. And Michigan State, the men's volleyball club is looked at very highly, just in the volleyball community as a whole, as what they do to promote the sport in this region.
And I know they're playing, I believe, this weekend in Minneapolis for the national club title. I've heard a lot of teams are heading up there, as well as other local club teams. Just to point on that, do you foresee Michigan State getting into varsity status?
Well, it's really difficult to say because Michigan State's athletic department is in been in an upheaval ever since George Perlis took over as AD, and then subsequently was fired. Then they came in with a new athletic director who I think was either resigned or was fired again or has been reassigned, and they're bringing in another one. So that's hard to say. They've been really pushing really hard for the last 5 years, and that's the club's goal. #1 goal is not to win a national championship, but to go varsity. And a national championship comes second for them.
Who from the Michigan State club program has come to IPFW? Anybody yet?
No, I wouldn't recruit from them just because I think I owe that to the coach over there.
Okay.
And I don't know if they would have anybody who could really come out and play for us. Their level of play is just a notch smaller, and they're a little bit too short for us.
All right, let's switch gears here to IPFW and your role as the assistant coach. What exactly is your job description?
Oh, it's a good question. We were just going over that a few months ago. But probably the #1 responsibility I have is as recruiting coordinator. And don't blame me for this year. I couldn't help the injury status, but I look all over the nation, and actually it's been coming over just about the world trying to drum up players to come out and play for us. I helped get George Iacovu here, who has been a pretty key backup for us this year and made a good impact in the middle. John Huffman is probably my biggest recruit so far. I don't know if I want to take credit for that right now. Maybe in a couple of years, but it took a while to learn the recruiting process since I've been here.
All right, and so that's one of the jobs as an assistant coach. Obviously, in your position, it's one of the more important jobs. I've known of assistants as kind of a recruiting assistant, as well as there's a floor assistant, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so you perceive yourself to be #1 recruiter. That's your first thing you have to deal with instead of, say, a practice situation.
Yes.
Okay, so after the recruiting, what other things do you deal with the
Well, I think next is conditioning. Coming up with a conditioning program for these guys, getting them back in shape. Right now, we're working with the head trainer, putting together an off-season conditioning program, which we've never had before. And it's going to become a really goal-oriented instead of just a general stay in shape type of thing. Then in the fall, I run all the conditioning programs in season and pre-season. So I think that's pretty important. Gives coach time to look at the X's and O's and get all the videotape, because I don't have time to do that.
Okay, so number 1, recruiting. 2nd, conditioning. 3rd, what's next?
Offensive coordinator. That's pretty much during the match. I watch the videotape, watch the other team's defensive tendencies. Then I'll come up with a game plan, or Coach Ball and I will sit down and come up with one that we think we want to use come match time. Then I just watch the defense during the match, and
you watch which defense?
The other team's defense.
The other team's defense, okay.
And point out to our setter what he should be doing.
Okay. So one of your goals is trying to be like our setter, basically. It's
Yes.
try to read where the ball should be set to and where to exploit the other team's weaknesses.
Right.
And that kind of thing. And so you do that during the match and before the match,
Yes.
and then you use that data during the match to plan for the next match against that same team, as you probably will play a lot of those teams maybe 3-4 times a year. Is that right? So
Right.
a little different than, say, a lot of the other sports where there's 10 or 11 teams in the conference and you only see them maybe twice or something
Right.
like that, right?
Right.
Okay, so what else would you have to do with the team?
I think there's just a bunch of other general stuff, like helping Arnie with whatever
Help him
he
plan
needs help
practice?
with.
Or?
Help him plan the practice. He usually does that on his own, but he'll ask me for ideas if I show up in time
Okay.
to do that. With my other job, it's hard to get in and come and actually spend time doing that.
All right.
But he sees me as the skill guy. So I try to work on individual skills with these guys. And
Take them out of a drill and work on them individually, is that
Right.
right? All right. So far here at IPFW, what are your most memorable? How many years have you been here now?
this is my 3rd season.
3rd season. So out of the 3 years, how any experiences you'd like to relate to the crowd?
Oh, I don't know. There's been a lot, and it's really hard to say that anything really stands out in my mind. But probably the most memorable experience was the very first match. Ball State, the A6 Grand Prix qualifier. That was back January 3 years ago. And I played in front of 75,000 people in a football stadium, but playing in front of 2,000 fans in our small gym against Ball State for the first time pretty much threw me aback a little bit.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dave. And we'll be right back with Coach Ball as he previews the upcoming match against Ball State. Welcome back to the Arnie Paul Show. Coach, we have Ball State here this weekend, and what is the plan? What exactly is the plan?
The plan is twofold, but we need to go back briefly to Coach
yes.
Schmidlin, okay? And that's the reason it's twofold. Two reasons why he is here, and one additional plea to the audience. And the office number is 481-6643. And you can reach Coach Schmidlin there. The first reason that he came down here doesn't have a thing to do with his athletic ability nor his volleyball background. I met Dave, and at the point when I met him through the coach at Sante Pirelli, and he was did some camps things for us, and that's how I really got to know Dave. But Dave is at that point was a very lonely person. And I felt that it was probably part of my responsibility to see if I couldn't help him with his social life. Because at Michigan State there obviously were no co-eds, good-looking co-eds apparently, for him to associate with. So I thought it was only my responsibility to bring him down here and see if I couldn't help him with his social life. I've had no success. Absolutely no success. And it's not because he's not a good-looking fella. I mean, if you see him with his shirt off, he's got a great physique. I mean, all those kinds of... So, ladies, if any of you are looking for a good-looking, hard-working, intelligent young man, call our office, and we'll set you up with Coach Schmidlin. And that's really the purpose. That's really our twofold purpose for this weekend.
I think that's an excellent plan. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think he'll appreciate it.
And the second part of the plan is the actual match then against Ball State.
Oh, Ball State. Yeah. Well, if we get to that point, we will first of all recognize our seniors. You know, this is our last match for us three seniors: Craig Collins and Felipe Relat and Scott Lauer. So that'll be a very important thing for us to do on Saturday night, just before the match starts. Then also we will have to participate in the match against Ball State. Who knows what will happen? I mean, it's a great scenario for us right now. As I reminded the kids, you don't like to reflect sometimes in the past, but I think it's important that we do that. Last year at this time, we went down to Ball State and thrashed them. And so they're coming up here this year. The very following week, they came up to our place and won the MIVA tournament. Now, I'm not advocating that Ball State come up here and thrash us tomorrow night, but I think it's a great opportunity for us to come out and play very well, play very hard, win or lose, because winning or losing this match does actually winning does one nice thing. It continues a little bit of streak that we put together that we haven't had very many of this year. However, winning or losing does not affect our seed in the tournament next week. We're going to be number 3 seed no matter what, whether we win or lose. What does affect is whether it's Ball State's the first place seed or the second place seed. That's what this match is all about. If we beat Ball State, Ohio State's first. If Ball State beats us, Ball State's first. And so that will determine the seeding for 1 and 2. Now that does make a difference as far as we're concerned as to who we will play. I have a preference, but I'm not necessarily going to go into that right now on the show. I'll talk about that maybe next week after it all gets sorted out. So it's a real important match for Ball State. I would look for Ball State to come up here and play somewhat tight just because of this seeding thing, because they're expected to win. I expected the same thing to happen down in Muncie next weekend, and if you read between the lines, you'll figure out who I want to play in Muncie at a certain period of time in the tournament. The match, I think, will be very typical, but I hope played better than the one we played down there. You know, we lost in 5 to them down there. It's only the second time we've played them all year. You know, usually in the past we've always played them 4 or 5 times. We've really gotten away from that, and I like that a whole bunch. Except now we got to get rid of George Mason 4 times. But I think it'll be a good match. I think it'll be a great spectator match, and I would expect both teams to play very hard. Our concern with our team is Ricky. As I alluded to before, he's not very well. And I'm not sure whether he's going to be able to play or not, and he's obviously very important to us. And if he doesn't play, then Justin Luna and Forrest are going to have to come in there and step up and play. I think that there are some things that Ball State does that we can take advantage of. We're going to try and be very creative in this match, so fans, you're going to see some things that you probably haven't seen out of us before. Don't look at it from the standpoint that the coach has lost his noggin. Because I probably have, but we're going to try and implant some things into the game that will give the Ball State coaching staff in particular some other things to think about when it comes to next week.
And that next week we will actually be playing Quincy before our next airing. So we might as well preview the Quincy match in the actual MIVA tournament. We'll start Thursday as all teams make the tournament.
That's correct. All 7 teams make the tournament, and number 1 seed is the only one that gets a bye. So we know that we're 3, and we know Quincy's 6. So we are going to play Quincy at 6 o'clock on Thursday night. If we win that match, then we would play at 8:30 Friday, and there are all kinds of scenarios in regards to that. We know Milwaukee's down in that bracket. But it could be Ball State, it could be Ohio State. It just depends on how the rest of it shakes out.
And Lewis is in the top bracket.
Lewis will be number 4, and they'll be in the top bracket, and so they'll play against the number 1 seed at some point or another.
Which is either Ohio State or Ball State.
It's going to be one of those two.
And they've beaten both, is that correct?
They have beaten both. That's correct. So the tournament is really wide open. It could be very, very interesting.
A lot of more parity than ever before.
Well, I certainly think so, Tim, and it shows in the regular season record. Certainly, Ball State has to be the favorite, with the fact that they've beaten UCLA, and they're going to be either 1 or 2 in the conference, and it's at their home site. But the home site has proved to be a disadvantage for the last 10 years, so it could very well be the same way again.
All right. A quick note on the national scene. What do you see happening in the other 2 regions?
Penn State and George Mason and now Rutgers are really battling out east. That is not an open ticket for Penn State right now to go to the NCAA finals. I think that now they're still the favorite, but George Mason and Rutgers, both who have strong senior leadership on their programs and have played very well, I think are right in the hunt. Certainly it appears that UCLA is coming out as the number 1 team out west. But Stanford is right close behind. Hawaii dropped down a little bit, but now has come back up. Santa Barbara's playing very well, really well. And Santa Barbara and Hawaii and Stanford and UCLA are all now guaranteed spots in the tournament out west. Oh. They've clinched spots out there. So those folks are really battling, and it's really wide open. I think it's going to be a great NCAA final.
All right. Well, we hope you will show up for the match tomorrow night against Ball State at home here, as it will be a barn burner, as they always are. It's just a lot of fun to be at those matches. Until next week, I'm Tim Heffron for Coach Ball, saying goodbye. Welcome, everybody, to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffron, along with Coach Ball. Today on the show, we will recap Ball State match last weekend, bring on special guest Benny Lewis, and the MIVA's upcoming this weekend.
Hello, I'm Arnie Ball.
And I'm Tim Hefner.
Watch us every Friday evening at 7 p.m. for IPFW Volleyball highlights.
We'll also describe strategies and fundamentals for all you new volleyball fans.
We may even invite a Volleyball or two to join us on the show, so tune in to us every Friday night at 7 p.m. here on Channel 6.
Back, everybody, to the Arnie Ball Show. Coach, we had just one match this past weekend, just Ball State. Finally, Butch did the scheduling right and let you guys rest up for something. Home match with it.
Yeah, but he scheduled it at home. I mean, why didn't he schedule it on the road, you know? I mean, on the road we win, at home we lose. So, once again, Butch has just not had a very positive impact on our program in the very short period of time he's been here. So, and he showed up, and he came to the game. That even made it worse yet. So I banned him from any future matches for the remainder of the season. And of course, we don't have any at home. So shoot, we might do pretty good here for very long.
Right. Ball State came in here flaming pretty good right off the bat. From what I hear, I was unable to see the first game myself. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
Poor preparation on my part, maybe more than anything else. I thought our team was physically and mentally ready to play that match, but we ended up trying to match up with Ricky and Pepa against Romano and Reimer, and I overlooked the fact that if we did that, we ended up with Romano serving with his jump serve, and he's got the best one on the team. His is better than Reimer's. Right into our rotation 5, and rotation 5 means that Scott Lauer is in the left back, coming up out of left back. And when he comes up out of left back, he has to come through between Ricky and Pepa. And Romano was hot with his jump serve right from the beginning, and we lost 4 points before we ever sit down. We were behind 4-0, and we were never able to recoup from that in game 1. We got down 11-3 in game 1, and then everything stalled on both teams. Serving was kind of bad. I think we had 12 serving errors in the first game. Our initial strategy was to allow Scott Lauer and Pepa to jump serve, and Mike Tremolin and Chris Farmer to serve short, and Craig and Ricky to serve that great big high sky ball. And we worked on it all week, and the purpose for that was to try and disrupt their offense with a little rhythm, because they're very rhythmical, and when Eddie gets in a groove to their middles, they're pretty good. And so that was the intent for all that. Unfortunately, we couldn't serve those in the court. We got them over the net, but they wouldn't go in the court, and our short serves were right to them. Craig's deep serves were out of bounds, and our jump serves weren't in. And so I had to abandon that strategy, and I still think it would work, and it may resurface this weekend if we get a chance to play them down at Ball State. But we just didn't execute very well, and they did. As I said, the game got to 11-3 and everything stalled. They made serving errors, we made serving errors. We ended up losing 11-7 just because, or 15-7. We just couldn't score. You know, we couldn't block any balls. We dug a couple balls, but ran into one another. It was just one of those situations that we got behind and really righted the ship. The first game lasted 50 minutes, which is a long game.
That's a long game, yeah.
Matter of fact, there was only one row left on the score sheet for rotations. I didn't even count the number of rotations we went through, but I would guess it would be close to 30 anyhow. But we just couldn't score. Two things that were really significant in the match were the fact that they outdug us dramatically, and their hitting percentage was much higher than ours. They served a little bit better than us, but serving aces and airs were almost identical. Blocking was very similar, just their hitting percentage was much better, and in particular in the middle. In the past, Mike Tremolins had very good matches against them, hit over 500. I think he hit like 23% against them Saturday night. Chris Farmer was down below 1. And as you know, if you don't have some kind of middle attack, it becomes real difficult for your left sides and your opposites to carry you. And Craig didn't play real well, and Ricky didn't play real well. I thought Pepa played real hard and really tried to carry us, but you got to have more than one person. Got into game 2, and we fell behind again right away and never caught up. We had to fight like the devil, came back to 9. I think it was 11-9, 12-9. Then we gave up a couple easy points. The one thing that I did is I rotated our rotation, so we got out of that jump serve situation, and I thought that helped us. Got into game 3, and I really changed the lineup to the lineup that we're going to use this weekend, not personnel-wise, but I flipped Ricky and Craig and put Craig back at the opposite and put Ricky outside so that we don't have that confusion of Scott coming up out of that trough between Ricky and Pepa. Really don't like Ricky on the left side totally, but we have ways of swinging Craig back on the left side and let Ricky go on right, even when he's playing outside. It also allows us some options in blocking that we really didn't have available to us against Ball State that we've been working on all week. And if we get a chance to play both Ohio State and Ball State on Friday or Saturday, we definitely will adjust our blocking schemes that this new rotation, and once again it's real minor, it's nothing major, allows for us to do some option blocking and maybe, just maybe, slow down both those teams' middles, because both Ohio State and Ball State have real strong middles. And we really didn't have that option against Ball State on Saturday, but then game 3 ended up being 15-13. It was 13-all. And we can't score at 13-all, and then Romano jump serves an ace to win the match. So the last half of the first game, everything is pretty equal, because once you get 11-3 and the score ended up 11-7, maybe both teams scored 4 points. The third game is the same way. I mean, everything's equal. We could have won just as well as lost. We win that game, I'm not sure what might have happened. Things may have changed around, and we might have had a chance to win.
I don't think the game scores indicate how close the teams really are.
Well, I think the teams are much closer than what those scores certainly indicate. We just didn't control their middles, and I thought that was the difference in the game.
All right, when we come back, we will preview the MIVA playoffs with Coach Ball.
This is the increasingly competitive world we live in, and this is the country we want ahead of the competition. These are the people we'll be depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. These are the colleges and universities we're relying on for the people we're depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. So if you want America to stay #1 in the world, do something about it. Give to the college of your choice.
Check it out!
The campus has it all.
Learn it, or work it, or play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go go to school, go ahead.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. Host Tim Haffern along with Coach Ball. And since that match has happened, that puts Ball State in first place. And they're in the other side of the bracket from IPFW. So as a quick preview of the conference tournament, which actually started, for you folks out there, it started last night, and is IPFW is presently playing while you're watching this show against the number 2 seed. Hopefully, I think we can safely say that IPFW will beat Quincy Thursday night. And so tonight, IPFW is playing, and right now, and in fact, is playing Ohio State, and that puts Lewis against Ball State in the other side of the bracket. Your thoughts on where we are right now?
Well, we probably couldn't draw it up any better if, you know, just let me draw the brackets. I think that the Lewis-Ball State match will be a difficult one for Ball State to dominate. Lewis has some incentive, twofold. One is that, of course, they end up splitting with Ball State and Ohio State both, and losing to us twice, so that's the reason they ended up 4th instead of 3rd. They also did not get any players on the first team all-conference, so that's probably got them a little riled up. They have a couple on the second team, but they didn't get any on the first team. So I think that's an additional incentive. And, of course, the last time they played Ball State in Muncie, Ball State beat them fairly handily. So I got to believe that that match is going to be a difficult match for Ball State to dominate. And, of course, the history of the tournament is that the host team very seldom ever wins. I think, 3 out of 15 or 4 out of 15 times the host team has won, and the rest of the time the host team has not won. However, in their favor, traditionally the number 1 seed has won the tournament. So we'll just see how it all shakes out, but I think that's a really good matchup for us if we're going to get to the finals. Of course, we played Quincy, and we've beaten Quincy twice. Hopefully we've done that again, as Tim alluded to as you're watching the show. And then we would probably undoubtedly play Ohio State, which would have played Milwaukee. And that's a good matchup for us, too. We've lost to them twice, but both matches were 4 games. We could very easily have won just as well as lost. I think that with the personnel of our team, the personnel of their team, if we can steady out, because they're a real steady team. They rely upon defense and that kind of a strategy, and that allows you to be real steady. Unlike us, that relies too much probably on our offense, and offense has a tendency to be a roller coaster ride. But I think if we can maintain their middles a little bit, control their middles, and certainly Jose Bengoa, which is their really fine outside hitter, who goes everywhere, including up in the stands to attack the ball. If we can negate him a little bit and make him handle the ball, I think we have a real good chance of being in the finals on Saturday. So the draw's as good as I can make it.
Yeah, it just seems that IPFW is so close, and it's like a game of inches, that if they could just score the points at the right opportune moments, and that is just like a couple points here and there, that would then shift the team up into the next gear, and they would be able to win a lot of these matches that they're losing. It's really not that big a difference from winning and losing, actually.
Yeah, really the only match that we have not been in all year is the one at Long Beach. Long Beach beat us up badly. The rest of the matches, and of course I think we're 12 and 18, hopefully 13 and 18 by the time fans see this show, could have really easily been the other way around. But we, as you alluded to, we just haven't kind of clicked at the right time, haven't got a point here, or a break there, I guess you might say, and of course I think you make your own breaks, but and who knows, this weekend that could change, and a little bit of momentum, a little bit of positive things happening to you unexpectedly can change that whole mindset, that whole attitude, and one dig here, one dig there, one net call, one whatever. Changes that, and if that happens, we could win this thing real easy.
Yeah, it's such a game of momentum, volleyball is, and of course you've got high-powered offenses. I think Ball State has definitely stepped up their level of offense from what I remember when I was playing. They're playing at a higher level, and the defensive ability of Ohio State that you just never know whichever team gets on fire for this weekend is in the Final Four.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that, and you're right about Ball State's offense. Eddie Faraz, who's their setter, really is, I think, helped that offensive team, help the offensive side of their team go. And of course, they've got 3 seniors down there who are really leading them, and that makes a big difference. And Ohio State's the same way. In order for us to be successful, our 3 offensive-minded players, Craig and Pepa and Ricky, have really got to raise their level of play. And all year, and not one match that I can recall, have those 3 guys really played well at the same time. Pepa's played well sometimes, Craig's played well sometimes. Ricky had about a 2.5-week stretch in there where he was just unstoppable. But none of them have played really at a high level all at the same time. If that happens, and that's what I've tried to talk to him about this week, and Ricky's back healthy now, Craig's back healthy now, Pepe's been healthy, and his knees are as good as they've been. If that can happen, if those 3 kids can really draw some energy from one another, and Scott can get the ball where we can have some success, and Pepa blocks the ball here or there, and part of what I was talking about earlier in the show is the fact that we're really going to try and free up Pepa and Ricky in blocking, and just let them go as hard as they can go and try and touch balls, and if they don't, they don't. But it's better than what we've been doing, and that's just standing around static waiting for the ball to come to us. Just maybe that will turn the thing around, and at this point we're just looking for one thing or 1 or 2 things that will trigger that energy that allows us to maybe jump over the hurdle.
The intangibles are sometimes you just can't control as a coach if your players are on or off. It's real tough to control that.
Yeah, it really is. But they have to draw off. As they have to draw off one another.
Right.
And sometimes that's just 1 or 2 little things that happens that makes the difference.
Well, hopefully we'll have a lot of that positive energy out there and becoming contagious within the team, and you'll be able to see them then again tomorrow night if you go down and play in the finals against probably Ball State or Lewis. We'll be back in a second.
Talk about unusual. How often do you see transparent televisions?
Americans have more money to spend on leisure activities than ever before.
When possible, children should trick or treat during daylight hours and be accompanied by at least 1 adult.
A boat archaeologists believe is from the time Jesus and his disciples fished on the Galilee.
For best results, fertilize your lawn when it is actively growing.
Many people suffer from allergies. Few understand them.
If you begin to think about a career, consider the hidden advantages associated with the dental assisting profession. The dental assistant can expect flexible hours, constant variety, excellent working conditions, and opportunities for employment in research, education, and management. A formal education in dental assisting at Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne offers the 1-year program that can assure graduates the knowledge and technical competence needed to become a leader in this respected profession. Be a part of this exciting career. IPFW's dental assisting program, the promise of tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffron, and in our third segment, just a little bit flipped around this time, we thought we'd bring in Benny Lewis, our new person on the block. His official job duty, I believe, is Athletics Marketing Promotions Coordinator.
Yeah.
And Benny, You've been here, what, a total of a month or so?
Well, a little bit less than that, but I've been in Fort Wayne now since December.
Okay.
So it's been a pretty good stint.
All right, let's go over a little bit of a history of where you've been as far as your career and things like that.
Well, I'm originally from East St. Louis, Illinois. Played basketball at Tennessee State and Southern Illinois University, graduated from there. Went from there to Australia and played professional basketball in Australia for 10 years as a professional player. Then I started up a magazine, a magazine publication called Shades of Black, which was a multicultural magazine dealing with a lot of Aboriginals, Fijians, Papua New Guineas, Africans, South Africans, just the whole Polynesians.
A global
sort of thing, and it was a nationwide magazine.
Great.
Went for 3 years, and then I decided to move back to America.
Okay, so you're back here in America, and as you come on to the IPFW scene, as a person in your position now, how do you view men's volleyball in relation to your new job here?
Well, I mean, to be quite honest, this is the first time that I've ever been affiliated with a university, or as a player or as a coach or anything else, where volleyball was the major draw card, and it was always like, it was a second sport. It was just being offered as a scholarship sport to say it was always the other sport. And coming here and seeing what the magnetism and the electricity of a volleyball game, I mean, it was it's like a kid in a candy store, from a marketing standpoint. I mean, I've always marketed basketball and always marketed baseball and other things like that because I was involved in those things. But looking at volleyball the way it is and seeing it at this level, and seeing how how a school of this size is competing with the largest schools, it's a marketer's dream. So I think I'm one of the luckiest men in the whole country at this particular point.
Great. So even though I'm going to ask you the tough questions, even though you've only been here, so long, do you have so far any specific ways that you think we can get more people in the stands, even though we already get a decent crowd here?
Well, I think everybody's awareness. I mean, Indiana is a huge basketball state, and IPFW once again being a primary volleyball school as far as everything goes, it gives them that alternative sport. But I've seen alternative sports grow really, really big, and it is big. I mean, volleyball is big. I mean, in IPFW, that message needs to be relayed out to the community. And as far as getting, I mean, to your big matches, when you had your draw cards from the West, and like your UCLA's and everybody else come in, they come in basically to see them. But I really don't think that the community actually knows how good this program is. And those are the types of things that I intend on promoting, is not necessarily the individual team itself, but the whole program, the whole volleyball program, and getting that idea out into the community. Arnie has done a really, really good job, and so has all of our volleyball staff, men and women. And it's a strong program. It's been one of the strongest programs in the Midwest. And when you look at things like that and you see things like that, and you say, all right, okay, all I really need to do is the things that I know how to do as far as basketball is concerned, and things like that, and incorporate them into a volleyball setting. I really don't think it should be that hard. And at the same time, bring those other sports up and get we're already recruiting good athletes for the volleyball program. You got to get those same good caliber athletes to come here as a draw card for the other sports as well.
So you think the product is here?
The product is here.
The goal or the the solution to getting more people in the stands is
Getting
the visualization or the
projecting the product into the community is probably the best probably the best way to sum it up. And I honestly feel that it just basically overkill. You know, just bombarding and opening it up to the community, as opposed to, it's still, even though it's successful, it's still sort of club oriented. You know, it's, you know, family oriented. When I say family oriented, you know, I mean as a group of everybody, it's still close knit. The projection is all facing in. What I want to do, what I'm going to attempt to do, is to project outward. Everything else, I mean, everything that's already known about the program is already there. The people that we access all of the time are the people who, whether I tell them about a game, they already know about the game. So what I'm going to do is trying to establish new markets in the community of trying to get them to see what this program's all about.
What venues are best to get to those new people that are untouched?
Schools is one. You know, nonprofit organizations.
What media would you use to get to those people?
Well, I mean, we got just about every. I mean, we got just about every type of media available to us. We got a television station. We have television station. We have radio. We have newspapers, and just as opposed to just going in and saying, give us, give us, give us. You know, we're going to be going. I intend to take out there and say, well, here's what we offer. This is what we're giving you. You know, and putting it as opposed to saying, well, this is a sport, providing it as entertainment. No different. You know, this is good quality entertainment. We got good quality student athletes, and promoting those things. We got good coaches and good programs, and opening it up to the schools and to the kids, and saying, and making the whole campus and the whole athletic program more user-friendly to the community.
All right, well, Benny, we're out of time for this segment. It goes fast, I know. IPFW athletics going to become a little more service-oriented, a little more entertainment-oriented, user-friendly, as Benny has pointed out here. And next week we will have a wrap-up of how the MIVAs went and hopefully how they're going to go into the Final Four. Until then, I'm Tim Heffron. See you later. Welcome to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffron, along with Coach Ball. Tonight on the show, we will recap the MIVA tournament, have special guest George Eichelvu on the show, and complete the season with a wrap-up with Coach Ball. Be right back.
Check it out!
The campus has it all.
Learn it or work it. Just do it. It's a cool place. Call now. Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. Host Coach Heffron here with Coach Ball. And Coach, we're in a different environment today here.
Oh, is that right? We're in a different environment?
I think we're in a different environment.
I recognize we're in a different environment. Yeah, this is kind of neat being over here in the Gates Center back here with all these people working out and pretending to be athletes. You know, this is neat. We got to do this more often, Greg.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start off with Quincy. We started off the weekend down at Ball State. The whole tournament's there. Thursday night, you're playing Quincy. Third place against, what, the sixth place team in the conference?
Oh, you're asking me that question?
I think so.
Third place versus sixth place. You know, Greg, this is really a great environment, except that we ought to be over here doing this simultaneously with Judy Wilkinson when they're doing the workout show. It'd be a lot more entertaining than what Tim and I are, so I'm sure our fans would agree with that. 3 played 6 on Thursday night at 6 o'clock at Ball State.
And how did it go? What happened?
We showed up, played Quincy, 1 and 3, and went back home.
That was it. So you came back home that night, even though you're playing the next day.
Actually, we didn't. We had planned on coming back home, but there was a banquet at 9 o'clock Friday morning for all the teams, so we decided to stay in Muncie on Friday night. So we went down on Thursday, played Quincy in a match that really was kind of blah, you might say. I mean, I think the scores were like 6, 7, and 7, something like that. The match was never in doubt. We played our first team, and of course we had just beaten them like 2 weeks before over at their place without Craig and Ricky. So we were pretty confident going in, and the match was like we figured. As a matter of fact, they didn't play as well down there as what they played over at their place. I thought they played much better over their place than they played down in Muncie. So our kids were pretty confident, and it was a fairly easy win.
Okay, so on the other side of the bracket on Thursday, Lewis plays somebody, and they win. How did that match look?
Actually, I didn't see any of that match to speak of. Lewis played Milwaukee, I guess it was, and ended up beating them fairly easily. Milwaukee really has kind of gone downhill the last half of the season, and I don't know why. I have no idea why, but Lewis won fairly easily, and then of course that made the matchups of us and Ohio State for Friday night and Lewis and Ball State for the second match on Friday night.
All right, so we jump ahead to Friday night. First match is IPFW versus Ohio State. Quite a beginning to the match, I thought, coming out. A lot of things right.
Well, it was a match that obviously, as you can tell by my tone of voice, and people who have talked to me in the last week and a half know that I'm tremendously disappointed in. And the fact that we lost. Certainly losing in the MIVA tournament knocks you out of having any opportunity to go to the NCAA finals, which is always our goal. And we came out against Ohio State, and I thought we really had put together a good game plan, and the kids did a wonderful job of executing what we were trying to do, and we basically ran off and hid from them. They couldn't do anything right, and we couldn't do anything wrong. And we blocked tons of balls. Our passing was real crisp, and the sets were in really good positions for us to swing at, and we ran our middles kind of at will, and they were having trouble passing our serve because we were really zeroing in on zone 1.5 to 1 and making Jose Bengoa go to his right to pass the ball, and then we were putting Ricky and Pape over there to block, and so it was all just funneling right into where we wanted to funnel into, and geez, we dug balls and transitioned and scored, and it was wonderful. I mean, we've never played that well all year as we played in game 1, and it went right on into game 2, and we did the same thing. As a matter of fact, Coach Hansen from Ohio State even had to change his passing system I mean, usually it has Jose, because he's a phenomenal passer, pass the middle of the court and 2 guys on each side, and he finally ended up putting him over on the left side because we were serving that ball so well, and Jose was becoming so frustrated that he changed the system. And when that happens, you go, oh, this is kind of fun. This is what we ought to be doing, and we're cruising. I mean, we won game 1, as we talked about. We win game 2, and we're all kind of walking around with our chest puffed out a little bit and our head feeling really good. And we come out in game 3, and Coach Hansen rolls his lineup, which I knew we figured he would do it sometime or another, and didn't make any difference. I mean, it was great. And next thing I know, we look up on the scoreboard, and it's 9-1, and we're playing really, really good. And it's like all of a sudden somebody dropped a curtain, or the Berlin Wall, I guess you might say, dropped down in front of us, and we couldn't do anything right. I've never experienced anything like that. And we couldn't pass. And of course, when you don't pass, as you know, you can't run any offense. And when we didn't pass, we couldn't get a ball where we could take a good swing at it. And we couldn't serve. And when we did serve, it was one of those things that here we'll just kind of throw it over and you guys take it, and all of a sudden Ohio State gained a lot of confidence. And I think in particular, I think there's one player that turned that match around. And I said so in the paper. I think it was Steve Potter from Ohio State, the left-handed kid who's their senior, who said, hey, wait a minute, time out. We're Ohio State. We've beaten these guys twice. This shouldn't be happening. Give me the ball. And Spitznagel gave him the ball, and he just hit it through us, hit it around us, hit it over us, did whatever he wanted, jump served aces on us, and we started looking at one another, and it just progressively got worse, especially in game 3 when we were ahead 9-1. And it carried on into game 4. I mean, it was getting pretty embarrassing. And I even got, in game 4, I got really mad at Ricky, not because I was mad at him, just because I wanted him to fire up. I wanted him to play hard. I wanted somebody on our team to step up and go, time out. We won the first 2 games. We're ahead 9-1. We ought to be kicking some booty here instead of going into a shell of, oh, please, let's don't lose this thing. Didn't work.
Oh, it did make quite a comeback. You're down 14-6, I believe, in that 4th game, and all of a sudden they put it in neutral, and we decided, hey, let's get back on. Let's try to get some momentum for that 5th game, and came back up to 14-13 before losing. And of course, there was some kind of a phantom touch call at the end of that game, which would have made a big difference here. But we are out of time in this segment. We will come back to finish out this story in the 3rd segment, as right now we're going to head out and check in with George Ikovu from Greece, and we'll be back after these messages.
Talk about unusual. How often do you see transparent televisions?
Americans have more money to spend on leisure activities than ever before.
When possible, children should trick or treat during daylight hours and be accompanied by at least one adult.
A boat, archaeologists believe, is from the time Jesus and his disciples fished on the Galilee.
For best results, fertilize your lawn when it is actively growing.
Many people suffer from allergies. Few understand them.
When you begin to think about a career, consider the hidden advantages associated with the dental assisting profession. The dental assistant can expect flexible hours, constant variety, excellent working conditions, and opportunities for employment in research, education, and management. A formal education in dental assisting at Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne offers the one-year program that can assure graduates the knowledge and technical competence needed to become a leader in this respected profession. Be a part of this exciting career. IPFW's Dental Assisting Program, the promise of tomorrow, today.
Welcome back to the Arnie Ball Show. I'm your host, Tim Heffron. And in our 2nd segment today, we have special guest George Ikovu from Greece. Tell us exactly, George, where in Greece are you from?
I'm coming from up north. Saloniki is my hometown. it's probably, for me, the best city all over Greece. It's a very great, graphical city close to the coast.
All right, so is volleyball a major sport there in Greece?
Yeah, I mean, we've got pro leagues, but the major sport right now is soccer, and after that comes basketball. But yeah, we've got a different organization down in Greece. The volleyball has 3 levels. Is the first national category, the second national category where I was competing, and the third national category. The first and the second national category, as they are almost professional. You have a weight, you have some trainings that you have to follow, and of course your team pays your expenses, your traveling expenses, home, food, etc.
So as a system of development, when did you start to play volleyball? When does the average person start to play volleyball in Greece? How old?
Okay, when I started playing volleyball, it was the average age was around 14 to 15. It was a good age to start volleyball because everyone that went to volleyball was a player that tried to play basketball and he couldn't succeed. So he just ended up to volleyball, playing volleyball. But right now they have a very good school for young kids, and they start around 10 to 11.
All right, and so you learned to play volleyball, and you are how old right now?
I'm 24.
24, so you're learning volleyball through the whole time here. Are you okay, George?
I'm fine.
Okay, and you're 24 years old. Why all of a sudden are you interested in IPFW?
That's a long story. I came here in the United States with my primary goal to study. And I ended up to Memphis. I was a student of International English, Intensive English for International at Memphis State. And there, of course, I spent about 7 years playing volleyball. You know well, Coach Heflin is a kind of addiction, so I try to find out a way to combine studies along with sport, along with volleyball. And a friend of mine introduced me to Coach Ball. I went up to St. Louis to the Olympic Festival, where I met Coach Ball and also the assistant coach of Pepperdine. The good thing is, and that's why I appreciate a lot Coach Ball, was that already I told him that I was a middle blocker, and you know that 6.3 or 6.4 is not a good height for a middle blocker. He said that he is interested in me, and he asked me to come up here and have a tryout. Unlike the coach of Pepperdine, he didn't even send me information. He totally ignored me. And of course I came here on October the 1st. I had a tryout. I had my head broke though. My arm broke and I couldn't perform as I wanted, but Coach Ball thought that I was good enough, so he asked me to come and merge with the rest of the program.
All right, so you were already in the States going to school,
yep.
And it was just a matter of finding a school then with volleyball in the States here. Yep. What exactly are you studying then that brings you to the States?
Yeah, my primary goal is to study biology, and if I have the financial support to go for medical studies. Mm-hmm. But since I've been in the United States, I noticed an increased ratio in computer science, and I'm not really decided yet.
Okay, so you're undecided. You may change out of biology into something involved with computers.
In computer science, yeah.
Okay. Now, as a volleyball player here, now done with the season, what are your fond memories of the season here?
To be honest with you, my finest memory was down to Ball State when we played against the Ohio State. It was a pretty tough match.
Which is that the
MIVA for the NEVA tournament. It was a pretty tough match, and it was a good and sad memory also because it reminded me my team back in Greece. We lost the championship just like that.
Just like that one.
Just like that. We won the first 2 games, and we were heading 14-7 the third game, and we lost the national championship for that. From that game.
And of course, IPFW was up 9-1, not 14-7, but
yeah,
relative stat there. Okay, so besides volleyball and your studies, what else do you like about America?
My big love from the United States is the green. They have a lot of nature, landscapes. I'm pretty. I like nature. I like nature a lot. They have a very good. The United States has a very good city structure, and of course the universities. The educational system is good. It's good.
Do you notice things are a bit bigger here in the U.S. as compared to Greece? So they have bigger groceries, bigger...
Yeah, I can say that as far as groceries and supermarkets and tavernas, Greek, we are famous about our happy hands. We want to eat a lot. So we got plenty of this, almost in every corner. But yeah, they've got big stores, very good place to have fun, and for me, they've got some laws that I don't understand it about.
All right, and you're planning on coming back next year, is that correct?
Of course.
All right, great. Well, we have to break right now. George, thanks for being on the show. We look forward to seeing you again next year. And Coach Ball will be back with us as he recaps the end of the year and his closing remarks.
Team spirit is alive and well at IPFW. That's because IPFW has established itself as an athletic power, not only regionally, but nationally. With 11 major sports, IPFW offers talented student athletes great opportunities. Success and support of IPFW athletics comes solely from the fans, students, faculty, alumni, and the prestigious Royal Dons Club. The Royal Dons Athletic Club has over 500 members who financially support IPFW athletics, enabling the university to provide scholarships to deserving athletes. Members will receive one or all of the following: season passes to all sporting events, special seating, hospitality room, plus Royal Dons apparel and gifts. Be a part of the winning tradition. Join the Royal Dons Club. We need your support. Call IPFW Athletics. Get into the team spirit.
Here with Coach Ball. And Coach, I cut you off. You were just getting ready to go and going, and I had to pull in the reins a little bit there. I'll let the reins go and just pick up right where you left off with Ohio State Game 4, 14-12, and there's a phantom touch call.
14-12, as you alluded to before we took the break. You know, we were down 14-6, and our kids just dug their heels in and said, timeout. Now, we needed to do that in Game 3, but it didn't happen. So at least in Game 4, it did happen, and the momentum changed. And we got it to 14-12, and we're serving. And 14-12, and Potter, I believe it was, takes a swing off the weak side, and the ball sails. I mean, it's still going. It's still going today. You know, it's still rising. It got right out of the arena and just kept running and going. And the linesman, not the one down the line, the one across on the other side, called touch. Well, needless to say, I went a little bit ballistic and got a little upset, of which did absolutely no good. And so then we come back and side out, and we score again. So now it's 14-13, and then we lose 15-13. Obviously, that call was real critical to maybe us being able to win that game. But more importantly, it was back in Game 3 when you're ahead 9-1, and we couldn't put the brakes on. But we coaches look at those things and go, what if? And certainly what if this guy wouldn't have made that call? Could have changed the momentum. We could have maybe have had a chance to win Game 4, because we certainly had changed the momentum of the match. Went into Game 5, and I knew it was going to be just a great game. And I know Coach Hansen, because we've talked since, knew since the same thing. When that momentum changed back, it's just going to be war. And it was. And at 8-6, when we made the turn at 8-6, we're ahead. And we can't maintain that. We can't side out. We pass a couple balls badly. We make a couple of hitting errors. And then it jumps to, I think, 13-all. And they go hit 14-13. Goes back to 14-all. They go hit 15-14. We pass the ball. And it's up on top of the net. And Scott jumps to set it. And they block it. And the match is over. And then I was really unhappy. And then I let the official know that I was unhappy. And indeed, and he said the ball was on top and it was a playable ball. I haven't seen the videotape, I haven't watched anything to even know whether or not that was true. And then we ended up losing 16-14. And it was just really a tough loss for us.
Okay. So from that point then, Ball State competes against Ohio State in the final. And Ball State pulls out the victory for the MIVA championship and gets the berth to the Final Four. Who else is in the Final Four?
At this time, I don't know who the 4 teams are. We know Ball State's won, and we know Penn State's won. But out west, they have to play this weekend. And UCLA is left, Hawaii is left, Santa Barbara is left, and BYU is left. Those are the 4 teams. They'll have a term just like what we had last weekend, the Final Four of their conference. The winner will get an automatic bid. And then probably the second place team will be recommended for an at-large bid. And my guess is, unless it might be BYU, that it would be one of those teams. Because I don't really see anybody, certainly no one in our part of the country. Maybe George Mason might have an outside chance of being the at-large bid. But unless BYU ends up second, I think it will either be Santa Barbara or UCLA if they would happen to lose, or Hawaii.
Okay.
So that'd be my guess.
And who do you predict to be the winner of the whole kit and caboodle?
Well, it'd be kind of silly for me to pick anybody but UCLA. And of course, Ball State's going to say they beat UCLA, and therefore they may have an opportunity, and I hope they do. Ball State's got a really nice team, and I hope they go out and show well and get a chance to play for the championship. I don't know how the seedings are going to work out. Once again, it depends on who wins, but I think Hawaii's got really a nice team. And Coach Preston's done a good job at Santa Barbara, but I don't think he's quite as strong as either Hawaii or Santa Barbara or UCLA. And I would look for the Hawaii-UCLA final.
Okay. Let's switch gears here a little bit to recruiting for next year. Let's talk about next year and how is recruiting going? How many people have you signed? Can you sign people yet? Do you have a full staff?
Well, we don't have a full staff, that's for sure. Obviously, losing Scott, Pepa, and Craig gives us some major holes to fill. So we need to look at those positions. And we're not necessarily looking at bodies as we are looking at positions that we need to fill for next year. Certainly right now we have a major void at the setter position. And we are talking to 3 individuals. We know we have one coming for sure. And at this point, I'm not allowed to divulge names or talk about student athletes, on the television, but we can talk about kinds of people we're looking for, and we know for sure we have one coming. We know for sure that we have, and we'll be announcing this within the next 2 weeks, a very tall middle hitter coming who's committed to us, who's going to be very, very good. We are also looking at 2 additional middle hitters, one who would be maybe the best player we've ever had here in regards to his experience and his abilities. Another young man who's also very tall. I mean, we're looking at 6'7", 6'8" kids right now, and the one young man is 6'7" that's already verbally committed to us. We're also looking at a young man who the national team's looking at from out east, who we tried to recruit last year, who's now very interested in us. So we're looking at signing a minimum of 2 setters and probably 3. We're looking at signing a minimum of 2 middles and hopefully 3 and an outside. So we're looking at signing 4 to 5 kids who can fit the role of middle blocker, middle hitters, one passer, and at least 2 setters. The talent is very good, even though I would tell the fans that it's not a real broad-based talent in the U.S. You probably will see some additional foreign players on our team next year.
So we're looking at an international flavor, perhaps, more so than ever before.
More so than ever before. Spanish may not be our only second language next year.
All right. Well, that wraps up this year, Coach. Any closing thoughts? You've got 20 seconds, I'll give you.
Well, the most pressing issue would be to thank all the fans who have supported us this year, in a year that's been most difficult for all of us, including our players. But I know our players are very appreciative of all the fan support, and certainly I am, and we look forward to having a great season next year with a real quality program.
All right. Well, for Coach Ball, I'm Tim Hefford, and we've just really enjoyed bringing this program to you this year. We will be back next year again with the Arnie Ball Show if Coach likes what I've done. If he doesn't, I won't be back. He will. And in any event, hopefully we'll see you all back in the stands as in the show also. Bye for now.